Hey, what's up you guys? Welcome back. Thank you for joining me on this interesting and also polarizing subject. So I've been meaning to make this video for a long time, but now here I am, and I'm going to divulge to you guys why it is that I sold my old RX-7. The exact reason why I sold it. Just a quick primer for those of you who are not familiar. This is my old RX-7. And I also have another video on this channel where I basically cycle through all the pictures and stages and phases that the car has been through, which were many. And the last phase or iteration that the RX-7 landed on was a LS3 swapped V8. And then soon after that, I pulled the plug and sold it. So here I have this FD that I spent 5.5 years of constant sweat and work on. I ended up with a LS3 swapped V8. I had a TR6060 transmission. I had a Ford 8.8 rear end with drive shaft shop axles, the whole nines. There wasn't really anything else I could do to it. It was modded to the tilt. And yet, there's still some sort of creeping dissatisfaction that ultimately led me to let it go. Otherwise, why did I sell it? And now I'm going to tell you point blank what that reason is. The reason why I sold it is because after the swap, the RX-7 drove like a Corvette. Plain and simple, it felt like a smaller bodied Corvette. And I wasn't really into that. So this is a clear-cut example. It really epitomizes a scenario where something on paper does not translate into actuality. And now the only reason why I even bothered to do a V8 swap on this RX-7 was because I already did the whole rotary thing for so long. I mean, my first RX-7 was back in 2007. I did a single turbo conversion on the specific black RX-7 already. So really the only choice for me to go from there was to basically double down and do another single turbo setup or go with a V8. So I wrote down all the pros and cons of staying with a rotary versus going with a V8. And again, on paper, the V8 makes complete and total sense. It's more reliable, it makes a ton of power stock. You're not squeezing a V8 to the brink of its, capacity to get all this power out of it. Parts, they're abundant. It's a domestic engine. It's prolific. It's in all sorts of vehicles. It's in Tahoes, down to Camaros, down to Corvettes. So you can basically go into a local AutoZone, grab something off the shelf. Okay, yeah, cool, nice, super interesting, amazing. Oh, hey guys, what's up? Quick word from our sponsors. Just kidding, I'm not actually sponsored, but I do want to quickly push this awesome product on you guys. I'm actually using this myself. This is a silk iPhone wallet case. So for all you guys who have an iPhone and use a wallet, throw that wallet away. Preferably take the money out of it first and then throw the wallet away. Get this phone case, consolidate, minimize your clutter. It fits 3 cards inside. All you need is your debit card, your driver's license, and your credit card. That's it. That's all you need to get around. It's about to be 2020. Let's get with the future. This thing is cheap AF. It's about like 15 bucks on Amazon. I'll link to it below in the description. I would really appreciate it if you can actually buy it through the link below. That way I can get some food money. And that's it. Back to the video. And then of course on the flip side, when the rotary breaks, which is pretty common, you're gonna have to go on the soul searching excursion, scour the ends of the earth to find that one rotary mechanic in that triangle shaped hut to then help you rebuild the engine. And some theorists out there like to dispel the whole stereotype that rotaries are not actually unreliable. And as someone who has kind of been on both sides of the camp, I've joined both armies. I'm like that clanless nomad. I can tell you there is definitely some truth in that statement, in that stereotype. For example, when a rotary engine universally goes bad after about 60,000 miles from a stock, well-maintained setup, there's something wrong with that. Or how you actually get inducted to the Rotary Hall of Fame when your engine somehow eclipses the 100,000 mile mark. I mean, 100,000 miles on any other engine is not really that fancy. It's not really that surprising. But on a rotary, you just solve cancer. And time again, just from being involved with the community and also being on the forums and reading other people's experiences, I've read a lot of heartbreaking stories of people who rebuild their rotary engine only to blow it seconds later on the dyno. And some people have even done this multiple times. They would actually build the engine, blow it, build it again, and then blow it again. That's pretty heart-wrenching. I don't think I can ever go through that myself, and I don't want to put myself in a position to also have to do that, which is another reason why I sort of got gravitated towards the V8 direction. But that's not to say there aren't successful practitioners of the rotaries. Certainly there are people who've done a lot of great things with these engines. They're very successful, they haven't blown them left and right. But I feel like the operating spectrum to hit that type of success is pretty small. And I think a good expression to kind of encapsulate all this is that rotary owners are playing the car game on hard mode. And now going back to my RX-7, after the single turbo conversion, I was driving around for quite a bit, but towards the tail end of that, I was starting to get a little bit paranoid. And I'm not going to lie, it kind of felt like I was driving a time bomb. Every time I hit boost, a question in the back of my head would go off and ask, has my time come? Is this where I actually end up on a tow truck? And having that lack of confidence was not the way I wanted to operate. And really that's what pushed me over the hill and down to the V8 camp. And anyway, after I decided to undertake the V8 swap and after all of that was done, the very first thing I noticed was just how fast the car was. I mean, the torque was insane. It was a completely different experience. Right off the bat, I had 430 to the wheels and almost the same number in terms of torque. With the V8 swap, I can definitely say it pulled like a monster. I mean, I could climb a hill in 6th gear at like 1,000 RPM. That was pretty cool too. Got far better gas mileage, ironically, than the tiny rotary engine ever did. And the second and more prominent thing that I noticed about driving a V8 swap FD was just how different the power band was. It was far more linear, it pulled completely differently than the rotary. But at first I thought, it was kind of cool, it was different, I liked the torque. But then after a while, and after the initial sense of speed and excitement wears off, the elephant in the room sort of comes into the play, and that is the change in the driving dynamics. And one of the good points about a rotary engine is just how high revving and smooth it was. And the V8 just felt like the total opposite of that. And I also realized that for my own personal driving style, I prefer the dynamics of a rotary engine. And the biggest irony in all this is when you do a massive undertaking like swapping the entire power plant and drivetrain in your car, you want to be more unique about it, right? Initially in the early days when people were not doing V8 swaps that often, it was really cool to see a V8 swapped FD, but now V8 swaps are so prevalent and prolific that they're just no longer that cool. I mean, I feel like almost a quarter, if not more, of the entire FD population in the United States is now possibly a V8. So that really loses some of its appeal and honestly makes the original rotary engine that much more unique. And the main underlying reason I think stems back to when I was first trying to deliberate on making the choice of staying with the rotary or going with the V8. I was just being way too practical and too pragmatic with my way of thinking. I was trying to turn the FD into some sort of like daily driver potential or some sort of car that can drive like 100,000 miles on. But I lost sight of what the car's intended purpose really was. I mean, the FD to me was just a weekend car. It was like a cool project, it was like a toy. It wasn't something that I had to drive every single day in bumper to bumper traffic. So that kind of diminishes the necessity to put so much priority on like the practical aspects, like the reliability, the gas mileage, all this stuff. It didn't really make that much of a difference. So for a car like that with its actual intended purposes, I think the things that make it unique, the things that make it quirky are the ones that should be treasured, not the more practical on paper stuff, right? So even the hardships of owning a rotary then become sort of part of the game. It's sort of stuff that adds flavor to the equation. Because at least at the end of the day, when you stay with a rotary, I think, you're gonna have something that is difficult and different in its own light, and you won't end up with a RX-7 that's really just a Corvette on diet pills. So we've been focused on the power dynamic changes that happens with a V8 swap, but there's one more thing to take into consideration, especially with V8 swapped FDs, and that's going to be the transmission. So typically when you do a V8 swap, you're going to be tied to whatever native transmission comes with a V8. In the case of a LS swap, you're most likely going to be tied to some variation of a T56. So that's probably going to be either the original T56 or the newer variations of it, which is going to be the TR6060 or T56 Magnum. So the latter two, they are newer architectures of the original T56. They have stronger internals, triple synchros, etc. So I think of the three, the best shifting one is going to be the T56 Magnum because the shifter is directly on top of it. The TR6060, again, is the same thing as the T56 Magnum internally, but has a remote linkage. So it's a little bit more vague in the shifting field. And of the three, the T56, the original one, is probably the worst shifting transmission. It shifts like a truck. That's a pretty common complaint with those transmissions. And then of course, tying it back to the FD specifically, the original 5-speed transmission that Mazda paired the car with is amazing. It's excellent. I think even to this day, it's still one of the best shifting transmissions. The shifting feel is tactile, it's buttery, it's smooth, it's engaging, and you lose all of that even with a T56 Magnum, I think. I personally had a TR6060 with a short shifter, and even with a short shifter, it did not compare to the shifting feel that I had with the original 5-speed Mazda transmission. So with that being said, these are just my personal observations based on my experiences and also based on the values and scope that I set forth in this video. This may be completely different for you, so I'd actually be interested in knowing in the comments if a V8 swap or a rotary swap applies to you and which you would prefer and why. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it informational. If you did, please hit that like button. It really helps. Subscribe if you haven't already. Follow me on Instagram @GrandMighty if you want to do that. And until next time, I'll see you guys here in Corn Balance. Peace.